think that values are very important in this school because values obviously make the world go round, and without values this will be a very violent world. And in this school, with us having values, our school has changed completely, and we have stopped fighting. We've tried our best to clean the school. We've tried to make a good impression to other schools when we join competitions. Even though we don't win, we still want to cooperate, and we want to show that we care about the other schools, and we want to show that they did well and we did well, so that we all feel great. And I think that with values, this whole school has changed, and we wouldn't be anything without values.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Hello, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Sarah Phillips. I'm head teacher of a large primary school in the southeast of England, and today I'm here to share some thoughts, ideas in on this session on atmosphere and ethos with you. All of us as educators, I'm sure, would agree that we would love to be able to develop a positive ethos in our schools. And we might like to start with thinking about a comment that was made by one visitor to a values-based school who said, "Everything here just smiles at you." For us, that's what we're trying to achieve in our school. And I would like to use this session to help you to begin to think about how you might also do the same for your classrooms in your own school community. So this is my school, Loddon Primary School. As I've mentioned, we're a large primary school just 40 miles from London in England. Our school welcomes children from the ages of 2 to 11 from a wide, diverse background, some of whom speak different languages, some of whom have joined our school recently from other overseas countries, and many of whom have always lived in our part of England. Over the recent years, we've been expanding and getting larger, and we now have the challenge as a large school of how do we continue to create, develop, and underpin our education with a family atmosphere. For us, we felt that values-based education approaches would be the answer to this. And we found in recent years that it has really helped us to work together as a community to realise the potential in everyone. The atmosphere we've created has been a key factor in achieving that goal. So here we are. Our school, like all schools, I'm sure, prides itself on being a caring and friendly place. I've yet to visit a school that doesn't commit itself to this end and wish to look after its children and adults and to create a kind and family atmosphere. And yet atmospheres in schools can vary greatly. Perhaps this may be around the focus that your school has. Some schools have a great focus on their results, on achieving good exams, on developing children for the next stage in their career perhaps. Some schools focus on a broader learning experience, or perhaps there's something in their community which is of particular importance, which drives their decision making. For us, we now focus our efforts on a values-based approach. We want to ensure that our atmosphere and environment produces children that will be confident and determined to make a positive difference to our ever-changing world. We believe that values-based education approaches will help us to do this. And we spent the last 7 years investigating this and developing what we do. It's not been easy, there's been challenges, and we still have more work to do. But in this session, I'd like to share with you some of the things we've done and part of our journey, particularly how we've changed and developed our ethos. So here are our Loddon values. You're probably already aware that as a school, you can take some time together as a team to decide on the values that are most important to you. And that's where we began our ethos work. which were the values that already drove our behaviour and our thinking, and that we could build on to take our school forwards. We wanted to ensure that these values were evident both inside the school and outside, and in more recent time we've also begun to work with our community to share these values further afield, both with our wider families and with other community partners. These values underpin our decisions around resources, learning, and development generally in the school. So I'd like to pause for a moment to give you time to reflect, so that you can take a moment to consider, where are your school values most evident at this point in time? So where to begin? Well, as I said, initially we decided on our values as a team. And once we'd done that, we then thought about how could we get buy-in from our children initially. Our children already showed many of our values. We did have much happiness in our school, kindness, consideration, thoughtfulness, but we also wanted to help our children to feel motivated to really show the values in a much deeper way and to go the extra mile. We already had a reward system in school, which included a house system where each of the children are placed into a group in the school, and they already had projects and competitions they shared together. So we decided we would link our reward system to this house system that was already in place and introduce our gems. You can see on the photograph our values tree, which is in the head teacher's office at our school, and you can see our 4 house coloured gem pots. Each of the houses in school has a gem linked to it, and for all of the children that show our Loddon values to a greater extent or do something that we're really proud of, they can be awarded a gem. The children then come to visit me and tell me about what values behaviours they've been showing and take a gem away, and are then included in our school newsletters as a celebration of their great work. The children absolutely love the gems. I've heard of one child who sleeps with it under her pillow each night. And they also can be awarded house points or commendation certificates for getting their gems. In more recent times, we've also introduced our values ambassadors to school. These are some of our older children who are given positions of responsibility to help further develop our values-based work if they've been awarded a gem in the term before. Gems are really valuable to our children, and so we make sure that we award them for the children that have made the greatest effort, but we also like to make sure that we award them enough that they remain a motivator. I'd also add at this point that it's important to also reward the staff. And we did trial at one point staff being given gems too, and staff certificates, and we'll continue to trial these systems with our adults. After all, the adults have the most important position in school of being role models for our values behaviours, and the children really love it when they get a gem or a certificate at the front of assembly as well. So this slide gives you a little bit of a flavour of our school. Here's some of our beautiful children. As I've already mentioned, we have agreed our values together, and one of our values is cooperation, and I think these photographs demonstrate really well that value in action at our school. We also, as a school, really pride ourselves on a family ethos, and as you can see, we love hugs at our school. In modern times, many schools have taken the decision to perhaps not hug their children any longer and to have a more professional relationship with their children. And whilst we retain that professionalism, we feel it's really important that the children see our school as an extended family. In 2020, dealing with the pandemic, this has been really challenging to us because we've not been able to hug at the moment, and social distancing has been required. And it's been interesting to note one of our staff commenting that Loddon really is a hugging school, and how difficult it's been to maintain that ethos and atmosphere when you have to have social distance for a particular reason. Instead though, this is about creativity, I guess, and reviewing what you're doing. We've introduced a virtual hug into the school, and we've also posted postcards to all of our children at the end of the year with a virtual hug on the front, reminding us how important they are to us. I think one of the main messages from this is that even in times of change and times of difficulty, you can find a way through to ensure that your values-based atmosphere and ethos continues to have a positive impact on your community. So where does it begin, I suppose, on site? Well, here's our front entrance. And we take real pride in making sure that right from the moment when you arrive at our school, as you come through the gates, you know we're a values-based school and you know that we're welcome. You can see on the wall there a beautiful mosaic, which I will refer to again a bit later. This is a really important visual statement to all of our community and the surrounding area that we are indeed a values-based school and of the values that we hold most dear. You'll also notice that when we had our school building work completed recently, we were able to work with the builders to have a new entrance door put in. And I apologise because it's maybe not as clear as I would have liked on the photographs, but if you look closely, you can see that across the door, the entrance door, we have our Loddon values written. So it's really clear when people arrive that this is what our school stands for. Once they actually enter the building, we spend a lot of time ensuring that all of our staff, all of the members of our school understand that it's everybody's role and responsibility to show values behaviour. So I would really recommend if you're doing training or you're looking at values-based education together, you do include everybody. And for this, that will include, of course, your office staff, who are often the first people that are seen or the first people that speak to parents, children, other community members, and who therefore give a first impression of your values-based school. I'm really lucky to have an amazing office team, and they really contribute positively to what we do. And how lovely for them to be able to realise what a valuable contribution they make. So as I've already alluded to, values-based approaches and your school atmosphere is the responsibility of everybody in your team. We all hold that equally, and whilst it might be the job of perhaps a school leader or perhaps a values-based team within your school to come up with some of the blueprint or ideas for that, it will be everybody's task to take those forwards. As a school, we really try and focus on showing our values of responsibility and respect all around the school, as well as creating an atmosphere which is both welcoming, safe and calm for our pupils. When I first arrived at the school 8 years ago, and values-based education was not our driver so much at that point, the corridors did not look as calm and well-ordered as they do in that photograph. And perhaps there's areas of your school that are the same, that when you pass by them, perhaps they're a little bit chaotic, or maybe you've stopped noticing, because it's true for us all that when we spend a lot of time in an atmosphere and environment, some of those things perhaps become a bit like wallpaper and we don't notice them so much. So maybe when you're in school, you could take the time to go around with a fresh pair of eyes. Perhaps go around and think about, if I was going to make a collection of photographs of my school to share with other people to show what we're proud of, which would be the areas that already show that self-responsibility, that caring, that safeness for your children, and which would be the areas that perhaps you want to take another look at. As I've already said, it's really important that everybody is on board with that. When we first started our values journey, we had some ideas that were non-negotiables, if you like, for everybody. Everybody was told to have a values display. Everybody was supported and asked to ensure that their classrooms were tidied, were well house kept. As we've moved on that journey, we find now that actually we can have more individualism in classrooms, and people understand the values better and can do things for themselves. So classrooms will look a little bit different as we move around the school now. They may not all have the same blueprint, but they all are still driven by those values ideals. Something else that I think is really important for the messages that you're giving as a values-based school and the atmosphere you're creating is your notices around school. We've all been to places and visited places where perhaps it doesn't feel that welcoming because you're surrounded by do not do's, or you must do, or please look this way. Something that I was really pleased to see in my school recently was this lovely little notice that one of our 4-year-olds had put next to her sunflowers she'd just planted. She had made a little notice to take care of her plants that read, "Please do be careful." She could easily have put "keep off my plants" or something to that effect, but I was very proud to see that her notice was written in true values-based language and remembered good manners and used the value word of caring, careful linked to caring. We also have a lovely notice there which a class teacher has produced for her class, whose name are Firebirds. She's joined the school quite recently from a school that was not a values-based school and is one of our great advocates for values-based education now. And again, it was really delightful to see on her door this lovely notice that's there to welcome her class at the start of a year. You can see that down the left-hand column, it spells out the name of her class, Firebirds, and she's used with her class lots of values-based language to set the tone for arrival in her class for that year. So again, it's the little details like that sometimes that make all the difference. At the start of our values journey, much of this would have been led perhaps by a senior member of staff or a values-based advocate, but now I see it happening naturally, both with our children and the adults for themselves. Displays. So I'm sure you would have thought when I asked you to think about your own school, perhaps of some displays around your school that already did a good job of advertising your school's ethos and what you believe in. I think it's very true to say that I've visited schools sometimes that have amazing displays that really seem to celebrate and promote values work or particular aspects of their ethos, and yet sometimes the actual feeling of that school doesn't quite match the displays. So I would really caution at this point as well. Displays are really important. They make a huge difference in our school. But I have to say, as a school now, I think we recognise that whilst displays are there to celebrate things and to remind us of things, perhaps the most important work is in the relationships and the behaviours and what those displays are there to record rather than the displays themselves. That said, we have some great displays around school, and if you're thinking about a place to start your values-based atmosphere and ethos, this may be one that you would like to consider. I know lots of teaching staff love the opportunity to play with a good display, so that might get buy-in from them. And again, I would really encourage you to see how you can support your pupils to be part of that journey with you and to interact with you in your displays. You can see the display at the top of this particular slide, Up and Away with Lod and Values. Our Year 6 pupils actually worked together to produce that display themselves as part of a DT project. We've also moved on now. When we first began our work, most of our displays were very much about sharing ideas, sharing knowledge, reminding of the values. We continue to do that, but what we also use our displays to do now as well is to offer the children opportunities for reflection and interaction. And for example, our older children will often have philosophy questions or scaling exercises included on their display, so they become part of a learning experience as well. I'm going to move on now to talk about a couple of projects that we've had at our school in order to really kind of lift that values approach even further. So the first one of these is this beautiful mural, which is just inside our front door. This project was completed a few years ago with a local artist who is invited into school to support us with this. each of the children in school were invited to create a design of a leaf, including a values word. And then all those hundreds of leaves were brought together, and our values-based ambassadors and school council at the time selected the leaves that they thought would best represent values-based education in our school. And these were pulled together to create this mural. And then you can see many of the children got the opportunity to also be part of producing that mural itself. Sometimes it's really great, I think, to have a big project like this. It took us a few months to plan this. It took us a few months to save up the money to pay for this. But actually, sometimes to have that big statement and to pull a project together as a school like this can really kind of dial things up for your values-based education and really bring it to the forefront. And we're really pleased with this, and obviously we'll get years of pleasure from it. The next project was an even bigger undertaking, I suppose. But again, I would say one of our values at Loddon is courage, and one is ambition, as you can see on this slide. And it's really great sometimes to think about something that you could do as a school altogether that will be ambitious, and maybe might push you a little bit further. So this particular project was suggested by one of our Year 6 pupils who said, could we not have a mosaic of all our values? That was the start of the idea. As I mentioned to you earlier, we have house groups in our school, and this led then to a house afternoon. But all of the children in school, from nursery right up to Year 6, they met together in mixed age groups to support our approach to having a family ethos in school. And they initially investigated, researched different mosaics that they could find on the internet. They looked at different images that they thought might represent our values at Loddon. And then they pulled all of this together to put forward potential designs for each of the tiles, each of the squares that you can see that have been put together to create this mosaic. The mosaic itself was then developed and put together during 6 days of artwork with another local artist. And every single child, every single member of staff, and any parent that was available and wished to be included has put at least one part of the mosaic tiles onto a square. So this truly was a project that was about bringing the whole school community together and sharing our values, all of us collectively. And I think that's really important as a symbol, I suppose, of the importance of values-based education being an ethos that expands beyond just the pupils to the staff, the governors, the parents, and in our case now to our other local community partners. Once the squares and the mosaic was completed, we then were able to put it on the front aspect, the front wall of our school. So it's the first thing people see when they arrive. And additionally, I had a very interesting conversation with the artist towards the end of this project. The artist was feeling very proud and protective of what we produced and suggested that perhaps it would be better to keep it inside, away from the elements, and to ensure that nobody damaged it. This was, of course, an option, but we took the decision in the end that actually we wanted it outside, because partly this mosaic is also about making a really clear statement to our local area about what our school believes in and about our wishes to be a values-based school. So I'm really pleased that it has gone outside and that it's looking rather beautiful, looking out over our part of the world. So as we move on, I'm going to invite you now to have a think about the role that outdoor learning and nature might have in your development of a values-based education approach to learning, and how you might expand your atmosphere and school ethos to your outside areas as well as your inside classrooms. I'm just going to share a quick quote with you in terms of one of the guiding principles of values-based education. And you might like to keep this in mind as we talk about some of our outside spaces. For humanity to survive, we have to be attuned to the natural world, seeing its beauty and how it connects and holds everything on our planet in one system. So this is one of the guiding principles of values-based education. And we, like many schools, are recognising the great power that being outside can have on children's learning. In an age where they're drawn to computers perhaps, and maybe spend more time inside than they used to, we really want to create spaces and opportunities for our children to thrive and flourish in the outside world as well. Here's an example of some of the projects that we've undertaken to create that outside values environment and ethos. You can see the first picture on the left underneath the title. This is our Year 1 garden, vegetable patch. And the children put this together as part of their curriculum, looking at determination and looking at caring. And they used the idea of planting and allotments in order to explore those values further. They also then were able to invite in their parents, grandparents, and friends and family members so that they could come and work on that garden with them. And again, it's not so clear as it might be in the photograph, but there's a lovely big poster there at the front of that garden that says a big thank you on it, because at the end of the project, they invited all of those family members back to the garden and shared an afternoon tea together to thank them for their support and efforts. The photograph there with myself and the two boys, this is our sensory garden. And this, I think, was an amazing example of a values-based community project. We were really fortunate to be able to work with a group of teenagers, local teenagers, there was about 12 of them, who worked with the school to design a sensory garden that was specifically intended to support children with special needs. So we have different boxes in that garden, one for sound, one for hearing, one for taste, one for seeing, etc. That are developed to try and support particularly children with autism to explore their senses in the outside area. So the teenagers worked with our students to do that. And I think this was also a really good opportunity for those teenagers to show some of our laws and values and as role models to kind of support that way of thinking and that caring for our younger children. And there's something about a teenager that 9, 10 and 11-year-olds really aspire to be. So it was lovely to be able to work with them together in that way. We also at Loddon think really carefully about how we provide for our children at break and play times and our playground areas. This is our values garden. This was provided for us a few years ago now by our PTA, who had started to take an interest in our values and wanted to support the school to fund a project which would help children that perhaps don't enjoy the busyness and energy of football and some of the crazy tag games that go on at lunchtime, and wanted a quiet place to just sit and be calm and reflect. So they helped us to put together this beautiful garden, and the willow tree was already a big feature of our school, so we were able to use that as the central point for this garden. And you can see engraved around the top of the benches are some of our values words, friendship, caring, etc. The children loved this space, and at the point recently that we were having building work done at school, and the architect put his plans to the parents and the children, there was outcry because he, without realising it, had suggested that the willow tree was cut down and that a classroom was built on this space. This led to a number of children putting together protests and pamphlets and encouraging the architect to rethink his plans, which indeed is what happened. So again, it was really fantastic to see that as a school we'd moved our atmosphere and ethos forward so that children were so protective of this special place that they use to reflect and be calm in. We also think really carefully about, in terms of creating a calm and purposeful environment at school, how we might ensure that we can provide places for children inside the building as well. And something that we've been using quite a lot more recently is some of these pop-up tents to allow some of our children to just go and have that quiet moment on their own if they need to, if the busyness of a classroom becomes a little bit too much for them for periods of the day. This links in really nicely as well with their own self-responsibility and ensuring that this is a system that supports their learning as opposed to giving them the opportunity to have a bit of time out of learning per se. But we think it's really important as a values-based school that we think about individuals and how they can feel calm and safe through the general things that we offer as a school, but also by offering some individual things as well. So I'd like to invite you again just to take a moment to reflect and maybe think about how you might perhaps change or develop some of the things you do, particularly on your playground or for individual children in your school, to ensure that they also feel that they belong and have a positive atmosphere to work with them. So moving on, here's again some of our beautiful children looking very joyous and very proud of themselves. Something that we really again want to keep at the front of what we're doing in terms of our school atmosphere is to ensure that we have creativity at the front of what we're doing. We believe as a school that the music, the arts, these creative subjects help to build that joy in our children and give them experiences and feelings that perhaps they wouldn't get from the less creative subjects. Last year, for the first time, we trialled a singing festival, which was based specifically again around our values, and each of the classes in school selected a song which they thought particularly represented a value they cared about and performed it to the rest of our school community. So this is a photograph of one of those particular songs being performed. We're now looking into, actually, as a little additional detail, how we might be able to have those songs as a rolling recording on our school answer machine messages when people phone in and we're not there to actually welcome them and speak to them immediately. So again, I think anything you can think of along those lines that will give the children the opportunity to think about their values and to apply them in a different way, but also give them some of those joyous memories that we all have from our own school days, I hope. I would really encourage you to take that first step and have a go and see how you get along. So we've talked quite a lot there about practical things you can do, about resources, about events, but I just want to remind you before I move on that all of this is about that recognition and belief that students learn best when they feel welcomed, comfortable and safe. And that's the atmosphere that ultimately we're aiming to achieve, that calm and purposeful atmosphere for our children. Of course, the adults in school are so important too, and I'd just like to move on to say a few words now about the adults and what this all might mean for them. And I think we must never lose sight of the fact that if our children are to have good well-being and are to do well, we must look after the adults that are looking after the children. So as a school, we've also spent a lot of time thinking about how we can really take care of our staff well-being. So please, where it says teachers, read that as all staff, all adults. We've formed something we call an Every Adult Matters group. This group has representatives from across the school and from across staff groups. So it will have a teacher, it will have a senior leader, it will have a teaching support staff member, maybe an office staff member. And we come together regularly throughout the year to just sense check how staff wellbeing and resilience is going in our school. We plan social activities, we plan specific projects to support staff wellbeing. For example, through this group, we put on a mindfulness course for staff to support them to learn about forms of meditation and mindfulness. We might offer yoga or fitness classes. So again, I would really invite you and suggest to you that when you're starting your values-based journey, you not only think about the atmosphere for the children, but also the atmosphere for the adults. It's just so important that we get it right for them as well, because they'll be the role models and the people that are putting that in place for each of your students. As a school leader myself, I always put a little bit of budget towards this. But obviously there's lots of things you can do for your staff, which are about relationships and caring for one another that don't cost anything. But if you can persuade your principal or your head teacher to put a bit of budget towards it, you know, that's even nicer. This is our staff room, or one corner of our staff room. So again, sometimes it's just really a quick win. Maybe you can find some inspirational quotes, or maybe you could find some guidance from another partner organisation that you can just quickly share with your staff to help them to think and reflect and feel cared for. It doesn't always have to be big things or time-consuming things. I really would say look for the quick wins as well, but the most important thing is that you're really sending out that message that people are valued and that everybody in this organisation is important. And our parents have been an amazing partner in all of this, and actually our school atmosphere now is very much influenced by our parents as well, and by the contributions they make. We think it's really important to communicate with the parents what we're doing and to invite them to be part of our values journey. You can see on here at the bottom picture shows one of our parent groups that come together weekly, and this year have started going on what they call a mindfulness walk, and they're choosing different areas around the local community to go on a walk all together just to take calm time. And I know for some of them this has actually been the start of them doing similar things with their children as well. And this has all come off the back of the fact that as a values school, we've been looking at reflection and mindfulness with the children, and then they've discussed that with their parents at home. So it's just wonderful when some of the work we're doing with the children then becomes something that families can draw on for their own well-being. The photograph at the top shows a project that one of the mums led and invited our school council to be part of, where they donated presents to a local children's hospital. And again, this all came from that parent saying that she wanted to contribute to the value of the month, which was caring that month. And also you can see a photograph there of a little gift that was given to me by a parent who made lots of tea lights and lavender bags with all of the school values and went round the school community giving it to parents and members of staff that she felt it would lift or she wanted to show appreciation for. So again, when you're planning out your atmosphere, your thoughts for your school, I would encourage you wherever you can to think about what your families can contribute, to include them, and indeed to give them the opportunity to come up with their own ideas, because they do come up with amazing ideas much of the time. So finally, I want to summarise just by saying that as a school, we have really benefited from focusing our school ethos on values-based education. We're trying every day to offer that calm and purposeful atmosphere for our children that will encourage them to learn and will encourage them and support them to feel safe, to feel they belong, and to feel they're part of a really important wider family at our school. And I wish you all the best in trying to achieve the same at your own schools, and hope that this has been supportive to you in doing so. Thank you.